The North Sea doesn't feel like an ocean. It feels like a machine. It's steel gray and loud and restless, and even on calm days it moves like it's trying to shake something off its back. You don't get tropical sunsets out there. You get a sky that looks bruised, water that looks like sheet metal, and wind that never fully stops. I took the contract because I wanted the money, and I didn't want to be around people I loved. That's a bad reason to take any job, but it's a common one on rigs. Everyone out there is running from something. Debt, divorce, boredom, grief. The platform gives you a schedule so strict it drowns your thoughts. 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Eat, sleep, work, repeat. No space for anything else. My name is Callum Greaves. I was a drilling fluids engineer man on the Haldane platform, about 200 miles off the Scottish coast. My job was to manage the mud system, density, viscosity, chemical composition, everything that keeps the well under control and the drill string from getting stuck. If you do it right, nobody knows your name. If you do it wrong, you end up on the news. Haldane was a semi-submersible Rig 4 massive columns, pontoons below the waterline, deck towering over the sea like a floating factory. Everything was painted safety yellow and hazard red, but the salt and wind ate the paint no matter how often they touched it up. Rust lived in every seam. I boarded in late November, storm season. The helicopter ride out was short and ugly. Low cloud, rain slapping the windows, the pilot making micro corrections that kept my stomach uneasy. When we touched down on the helideck, the wind hit me like a shove. The smell was diesel, salt, and drilling mud-a-sharp chemical odor that clung to your nose and never fully left. Safety induction took 3 hours. Hard hat, goggles, ear protection, muster stations, lifeboat drills, gas alarms. The safety officer, a broad guy named Rourke, kept repeating the same phrase. Out here, you don't get second chances. He said it like he meant equipment failure, weather, human error. He didn't say it like he meant the sea itself. My first week was routine. We were drilling a new leg of an existing field, running a directional well out toward a pocket the geologists thought still had recoverable gas. The drill floor was constant noise top drive whining, iron roughnecks clanking, shakers vibrating, mud pumps thumping like a heartbeat. I lived in the mud logging cabin most shifts, a cramped box bolted near the drill floor, filled with screens and gauges. We monitored returns, checked cuttings, adjusted mud weight as needed. Most of it was math and patience. Then, on December 3rd, the drill hit something it shouldn't have. It happened at 02:46. I remember because I was staring at the mud pit volume totalizer, waiting for the next routine spike when the whole rig shuddered like it had been punched from below. Not a wave impact, not wind. A sharp jolt that ran through the steel and into your teeth. The monitors on my panel flickered. On the drill floor comms, someone shouted, "Torque spike!" The driller Henshaw came over the radio, voice tight. "We've got resistance. Stand by." I watched the numbers. Rate of penetration dropped to near zero. Torque climbed. The drill bit was biting something hard. "Rock stringer?" I asked Javed, the mudlogger next to me. Javed frowned at the lithology readout. "We're in shale," he said. "Shouldn't be this hard." The rig shook again. Smaller, but deliberate. Then we heard it. A sound came up through the drill string. It wasn't a normal drill chatter or vibration. It wasn't the squeal of metal on rock. It was a scream. I don't mean someone on the rig screamed. I mean the sound itself raw, high, and wet came through the steel like a voice forced through a pipe. It started low, then rose fast into a pitch that made my scalp prickle. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, then cut off abruptly, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. On comms, everyone froze. "What the hell was that?" someone said. Henshaw's voice came through, strained. "Who keyed the mic?" That wasn't funny. No one answered. Javed and I stared at each other. His face had gone pale. "That came from the string," he whispered. Before I could respond, the rig alarms chirped a warning tone, not full evacuation. Mud pump pressure dropped, then surged. The pit volume totalizer spiked. We were taking a kick. "Flows up," I shouted, leaning forward. "We've got influx," Henshaw swore. "Shut in! Shut it in!" The drill crew moved fast. BOP controls engaged. The blowout preventer rams closed with a heavy hydraulic groan you could feel through the deck. The well shut in, pressure readings jumping on the screens. We stabilized. No blowout. No gas on deck. But the scream stayed in the room like a smell. Rourke stormed into the cabin 5 minutes later, face hard. "Who heard it?" he demanded. Everyone raised a hand slowly, like admitting guilt. Rourke's jaw clenched. He looked at my panel. "You logged it?" he asked. "Yes," I said automatically, because that's what you do. You log anomalies. Rourke's eyes narrowed. "Delete it." I stared at him. "I can't. Delete it," he repeated, quieter. "This is a safety incident. It will be documented through official channels." Javed whispered, "That wasn't a safety incident." Rourke ignored him. He leaned closer to me. I smelled coffee and nicotine on his breath. "Greaves," he said, "you want to keep working offshore? Then you don't invent stories. You don't put words like scream in the mudlog. You write unusual vibration, and you keep your mouth shut." My throat tightened. What was it then? Rourke stared at me for a long moment, then said, "Rock." He turned and left. The drill floor went quiet for an hour while they circulated out the kick and brought the well under control. The crew moved with forced normalcy. Nobody made jokes. Nobody sang. The usual banter died. At 04, the company men, a lean guy named Tate who wore a clean coverall like he never touched anything, called a meeting in the conference room. I sat with the drilling superintendent, the tool pusher, Henshaw, Rourke, and 2 men I'd never seen before. The 2 strangers wore coveralls with no company logo. Their boots were spotless. One had a pelican case handcuffed to his wrist. Tate cleared his throat. "We had an anomaly during drilling operations," he said. "We will treat it as a standard well control event." Henshaw's face was tight. That sound wasn't standard. Tate looked at him like a parent. "It was harmonic resonance through the drill string," he said. "It happens. There's no need for." The stranger with the case spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, precise, not Scottish, not English. American. "We need the cuttings," he said. The room went still. Javid looked at me, eyes wide. Cuttings meant the rock fragments the bit brought up. Mud log samples. We kept them in trays for analysis. Tate frowned slightly. "We're already sending them to onshore geology." The stranger shook his head once. "Not those," he said. "The ones from the last 2 stands. Before shut-in." Henshaw swallowed. "Why?" The stranger didn't answer him. He looked at me instead. "You manage the mud returns," he said. "You'll take us to the shale shakers." It wasn't a request. I nodded because everyone else in the room was nodding too, like they'd practiced obedience. As we walked to the shaker house, the rig felt different. The same steel corridors, the same smell of diesel and salt, but the crew we passed kept their heads down. They avoided looking at the strangers, like eye contact would be dangerous. The shaker house was loud vibrating screens, separating cuttings from drilling mud. The smell was sharp, chemical. Mud coated everything in a thin film. The stranger opened his pelican case. Inside were sample jars, tweezers, a small handheld device that looked like a Geiger counter, and a black bag labeled with a biohazard symbol. He pointed at the cuttings tray. "Those," he said. The cuttings weren't normal shale. Shale is gray-brown, flaky. These fragments were pale, almost ivory, with a porous texture like bone. Some pieces had smooth curves, like they'd been part of a rounded surface. My stomach tightened. Javed whispered, "That's not rock." The stranger's handheld device clicked softly as he held it over the fragments. The clicking sped up. His eyes narrowed. "Bag them," he said. I didn't move. My hands felt numb. Rourke stepped in, grabbed gloves, and started scooping the fragments into the biohazard bag, like this was just another chore. "Don't touch with bare skin," the stranger said quietly, watching me. And don't breathe the dust. That sent a cold line down my spine. Rock dust is dangerous, sure silicosis. But he didn't say silicose, he said dust like it was something else. As Rourke sealed the bag, the rig shuddered again, not as hard as before. A subtle tremor, like something below shifted its weight. The stranger looked up at the ceiling as if he could see through steel and water. Then he said, almost to himself, "It's awake." After the meeting, they told us operations were paused for equipment inspection. That's how you say we're scared on an oil rig. The drill string stayed suspended. The well was shut in. The mud pumps idled. The crew moved into maintenance tasks that didn't make sense, checking valves that had been checked last week, retightening bolts that didn't need tightening. Busy work. And under that surface of routine, something else bred. You could feel it in how people talked less, how they jumped at small noises, how every man on the rig started looking down through grates into the dark water below the deck, as if expecting to see something looking back. I tried to tell myself the scream had been resonance, that the strangers were just corporate investigators, that the bone-like cuttings were some weird limestone formation. But at 9017, that morning, when I finally laid down in my bunk, I heard it again, not loud, not a scream, a faint sound like someone exhaling through a narrow throat. It came through the ventilation duct above my bed. I sat up, heart pounding, and listened. The sound repeated. A breath, then another. Then, faintly, a whisper. Not words, just a shape of sound that made my own throat tighten in sympathy, like my body wanted to mirror it. I grabbed my phone to check time. No service, but the clock read 09:19. I told myself it was the HVAC cycling. Then my cabin door handle turned slightly, once, as if someone tested it. I froze. Offshore cabins don't get random door checks. People knock. They announce. The handle turned again, then stopped. I stayed still for a full minute before forcing myself to get up and check. The corridor outside was empty, but on the carpet in front of my door, there was a thin trail of wet footprints. Bare footprints, small, like a child's. They led down the corridor toward the stairwell and vanished. I stared until my eyes watered. Then I went back into my cabin, locked the deadbolt, and didn't sleep. By noon, rumors were moving through the rig like oil on water. "Did you see the cuttings?" someone whispered in the galley. "They brought in Yanks," someone else said. "Specialists." "Sounded like a whale," a roustabout insisted. "Whales don't scream like that." I kept my mouth shut. Mudmen don't spread rumors. We document. We control. We don't speculate. But my body didn't care about my professionalism. My hands wouldn't stop trembling slightly. At Fortino, Tate called another meeting, but this time it was only senior staff and select technical personnel. Me, because mud. Javid, because logging. Henshaw, because driller. The strangers were there again. This time there were three. The new one was a woman. Early 40s, hair pulled tight under a hard hat, eyes sharp. Her coverall had no logo, but her boots were scuffed like she'd actually worked. She introduced herself as Dr. Klein. "We are implementing a revised well-control protocol," she said. "Effective immediately." Henshaw frowned. "We already have." Dr. Klein cut him off. "Not for this," she said. She gestured to a diagram on the table, a cross-section of the well bore. Depth markers. The bit location. At the bottom of the diagram was a shaded region labeled asterisk interface ask. "We hit an interface," she said. Not a formation, not a void, an interface. Tate's jaw tightened. He didn't like her saying that in front of rig crew. Dr. Klein didn't care what he liked. "The interface has pressure," she continued. "Not geological pressure. Biological pressure." The room went still. Javid swallowed audibly. Henshaw stared. "Biological?" Dr. Klein nodded once. "You heard the acoustic event," she said. "That was a response." "A response from what?" I asked, and immediately regretted it because her eyes snapped to me. From what is below, she said, and from what was sealed. My mouth went dry. Sealed by who? Dr. Duh. Klein didn't answer directly. She pointed at the rig schematic again. We will not continue drilling, she said. We will cement the well and abandon. Tate's face flushed. That's... He started, then stopped, because he realized he was about to argue profit against whatever this was. Even he wasn't that stupid. Dr. Klein leaned forward slightly. The cement job must be perfect, she said. No channels, no microfractures, no shortcuts. If the seal fails, it will migrate. Migrate where? Henshaw asked. Dr. Klein's gaze slid across the room, then settled on me. Up, she said simply. That word landed in my stomach like a stone. After the meeting, they started preparing for the cement job. Mixing tanks, pump lines, everything double-checked, and the rig began to change. Not physically, not yet, but the sounds did. Around 1800, the sea outside the portholes went completely still. No wave slap against the columns, no wind whistle. A rig in the North Sea is never silent. Silence means you're about to get hit by something. Rourke came to the mud cabin and stood behind me watching the monitors. You okay? He asked, and he sounded like he actually cared, which was unsettling. I'm fine, I lied. Rourke hesitated. Then he said, quietly, You ever hear old stories about the North Sea? I glanced at him. Like what? Rourke's eyes flicked to the cabin window, toward the dark horizon. About things that live under the rigs, he said. Old divers used to say the sea doesn't like steel standing on it too long, that it grows attention. I swallowed. You believe that? Rourke gave a humorless smile. Did you hear that scream? He asked. Before I could answer, the mud pit alarm chirped softly. Not loud. Just a warning. My pit volume was rising. But we weren't pumping. We weren't drilling. The well was shut in. Why is flow increasing? I whispered. Javed leaned in. His face was pale. We're taking influx again, he said. The numbers climbed steadily. Not a kick like gas. Something heavier. Mud density readings shifted. The return mud looked darker on the camera feed, thickening. I grabbed my radio. Henshaw, mud pits are gaining. We're taking influx. Henshaw replied immediately, voice tight. We're not pumping. Bop is shut. How? The rig shuddered. A slow roll, like a giant hand, nudged the platform. The pit volume spiked again. Then the scream came back. Not through the drill string this time. Through the rig itself. It rose from the deck plating, vibrating through steel, coming up through my boots. A deep, wet, furious sound that made my stomach clench and my eyes water. People screamed on comms. Someone swore. Someone prayed. And then, under the scream, a new sound. Knocking. 3 heavy knocks from somewhere below deck. Not on a door. On the structure. Boom. 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 Dr. Klein's voice cut through the chaos. Sharp. Begin cementing. Now. The pumps kicked on. Cement slurry surged into the lines. The rig crew moved with frantic precision, following orders like their lives depended on it, because they did. As the cement pumped downhole, the scream changed. It became focused, like whatever was making it had narrowed its attention on the wellbore. The rig shook again. Then the mud returns camera feed showed something that made my blood run cold. In the mud flow line on the video feed where you can see cuttings pass under light, I saw a shape, a pale curve, not rock, not cuttings. A smooth ivory surface sliding through the mud like something too big for the pipe, compressed. Then, for a fraction of a second, a round dark opening appeared in it, like an eye. It rotated slightly, as if looking up through the camera. Then it was gone, swallowed by mud. I couldn't breathe. My hands locked on the console. Javed whispered, "It's in the pipe." I heard my cabin door handle turn. Slowly, deliberately. I didn't move. I couldn't. The handle turned again. Then, in the ventilation duct above us, that faint exhale sound returned only louder now. like something was right behind the grill. Rourke backed away, face pale. "No," he whispered. "No, no." The cabin lights flickered. Then a voice came through the intercom, not on radio, not on comms. Over the ship-wide PA, a voice that was not Tate, not the OIM, not any officer. It was calm, deep, and wet-sounding. It said one word, stretched like something learning human sound. "Open." Every door on the rig clicked, as if the electronic lock cycled. My cabin door unlatching sound came from behind me. Javed made a choked noise. Rourke grabbed the door and shoved it closed, holding it with his body weight. "Don't," he hissed. "Don't let it in." "What is it?" I whispered, voice shaking. Rourke's eyes were wide. "The thing we drilled into," he said, "and it's not below anymore." The door handle pushed against Rourke's grip. Steady pressure. Not yanking. Not banging. Just patient force. Like someone strong trying to open a stuck door. And somewhere deep under the rig, beneath steel and sea, something knocked again. 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. The cement pumps ran at full rate for 20 minutes. On paper, that should have sealed the well-plugged the bore with enough slurry to stop anything from migrating. On paper, pressure should have stabilized, pit volume should have stopped climbing, and the rig should have returned to its baseline hum of machinery and wind. On paper. In reality, the pits kept gaining. The mud in the flowline camera feed got thicker, darker, like something was mixing into it from below. The density reading spiked beyond what made sense. Then the cement line pressure dropped suddenly. Not a leak. Not a slow bleed. A sudden drop like the cement had stopped meeting resistance. Dr. Klein's voice came over comms, sharp. "Continue pumping." Henshaw sounded strained. "We're losing cement." "It's not taking." "It's taking," Dr. Klein said. "It's just not sealing." That sentence made my stomach flip, like she'd expected it. The steady pressure on our cabin door increased. Rourke's boots slid slightly on the floor as he braced harder. "Help me," he grunted. I moved on instinct, grabbing the door frame and pushing. The metal vibrated under my hands, as if whatever was on the other side was also vibrating. The air in the cabin felt thicker, warmer. A faint smell of sweet, rot-like burnt sugar left in a wet ashtray seeped through the vents. Javed was whimpering quietly, not words, just breath. The rig shook again, stronger this time. A slow sway that made equipment clatter. Over the PA, the calm, wet voice spoke again. "Open," it said, and this time the word sounded closer to human speech. The cabin lights flickered. The monitors glitched static bands, sliding down the screens. And then the intercom speaker emitted a sound that wasn't a word. A soft, rhythmic clicking, like teeth. I felt it in my jaw. An involuntary urge to match it, to click my teeth in response. I bit down hard, tasting blood. Rourke's eyes darted to mine. He whispered, "Don't answer it." "How do you answer a voice?" I whispered back. Rourke shook his head, sweat shining on his forehead. "Not with you mouth," he said. The door handle stopped moving. Silence fell for half a second. Then, instead of pushing, something on the other side scraped along the metal. Slow, deliberate, like a fingernail dragged down a locker door. A sound that made my skin crawl. Javed suddenly whispered, "It's calling." "What?" I snapped. Javed's eyes were unfocused, staring at the monitor like he wasn't seeing it. "It's calling like whales," he murmured, "but closer, like inside my head." I grabbed his shoulder hard. "Javed, look at me." He didn't blink. The cabin door pressure stopped entirely. Rourke looked relieved for a second. Then the scraping sound moved away from our door, sliding along the corridor outside. Slow steps, wet and heavy, like something dragging itself across the deck. It was leaving, not because it gave up, because it had found an easier way in. Rourke exhaled shakily. "We need to get to muster," he said. "Now." I grabbed my hard hat. Javed didn't move. He sat at the console like he'd been unplugged. "Javed," I said. "Get up," he whispered. "It's in the pipes." Rourke didn't wait. He yanked the cabin door open and stepped into the corridor. The rig hallway lights were dimmer than normal, emergency mode. The air smelled like salt and hot metal, and the corridor was wet. Not from leaks, from footprints. Bare footprints, glossy with seawater pressed into the grime of the deck. Small, child-sized. They led down the corridor toward the stairwell. Rourke followed them without thinking, like his brain wanted to track. I grabbed his sleeve. "No," I said. "Muster station. Forget the prince." Rourke blinked hard, like waking. "Right," he whispered. We moved fast, boots slipping slightly on wet metal. As we passed other doors, I saw locks hanging open, cabin doors ajar, people peering out, faces pale. Someone shouted from farther down the hall, "It's in the galley!" A crash followed. Metal trays clattering. A scream human this time. The rig-wide alarm finally sounded. Gas evacuation tone. High-pitched, urgent. "Muster! Muster!" the PA blared. Tate's voice now, strained. "All personnel to muster stations, immediately." We reached the stairwell and started down toward the main deck muster area. Halfway down, the stairwell lights flickered. The air got colder. Then I heard the exhale sound again right behind us on the stairs. Rourke froze. I froze. The sound came again, closer. A breath drawn in through something narrow, wet. I turned slowly and aimed my flashlight upward. The stairwell above us was empty, but the handrail was wet, dripping slowly as if someone had just slid their hand down it. Rourke whispered, "Don't look up." I didn't understand, but I obeyed. We went down fast. On the main deck, chaos. Men in coveralls running, hard hats askew, alarm lights flashing red. The sea outside still unnaturally calm. At the muster station, the OIM was shouting names, checking head count. "Greaves!" someone yelled. "Here!" I raised my hand, breathing hard. Rourke raised his too. They were missing people. 2 from drill floor. 1 from galley. 1 from accommodations. Tate stood near Dr. Klein, arguing in low, furious tones. "We're evacuating," Tate snapped. Dr. Klein's face was hard. "You can't," she said. "Not until the seal is. The seal is failing," Tate hissed. "Dr. Korn." Klein looked toward the drill floor, toward the center of the rig. "It's not failing," she said quietly. "It's moving." A shudder ran through the deck, stronger than any before. Tools clattered. A few men stumbled. Then, from the drill floor area, a sound rose. Not the scream this time. A deep, wet, cracking noise, like ice splitting on a lake. The derrick lights flickered, then steadied. And in the center of the drill floor, beneath the rotary table, something pushed up. Not a blowout of mud or gas. A shape. Pale, smooth, curved. It rose slowly as if emerging from thick liquid. Mud and cement slurry slid off it in sheets. The surface underneath was ivory and porous, like bone. The shape expanded larger than a man, larger than the borehole should allow. It shouldn't have fit. It shouldn't have come up at all with the BOP closed. But it did. A round, dark opening appeared on the surface. An eye. Or something like it. It rotated, looking across the rig. It wasn't scanning randomly. It was choosing. Men screamed. Some ran. Some froze. The PA system crackled, and the calm, wet voice spoke through every speaker at once. "Open," it said again. But this time it didn't sound like a request. It sounded like a command a lock would obey. Doors on the rig clacked. Latches popped. The rig seemed to loosen, like it was exhaling. Dr. Klein shouted, "Lifeboats, now!" The OIM echoed it, voice raw. "Abandon platform!" The crew surged toward the lifeboat stations. I ran with them, boots pounding steel, heart hammering. Behind us, the scream came again, louder than ever, but not in pain, in recognition. Like whatever was coming up had found air for the first time. As we reached the lifeboat, I glanced back. The pale structure had risen higher. It wasn't a creature with limbs. It was more like a column of organic architecture, curved surfaces, ridges, openings. It looked like part of something too large to fit on the rig, forcing itself through a hole like a body through a wound. The drill floor light shone on it, and I saw markings on its surface. Grooves, repeating curves and angles. The same kinds of patterns I'd seen in cuttings. My brain tried to interpret them. My eyes slid away. Rourke shoved me into the lifeboat. "Go!" he yelled. We strapped in. The coxswain released the latch. The lifeboat dropped along its rails with a violent jolt, then hit the water, bobbing. We pulled away hard, engine whining. From the sea, the rig looked like a lit-up toy. Then the lights on Haldane flickered and went out one by one, like something was consuming power. A last scream rose so loud it vibrated the air over the water. Then silence. The rig remained, dark except for emergency strobes. No explosion, no fireball, just quiet. We waited in the water for rescue. Helicopters couldn't fly in the storm that never came. Support vessels took hours. By the time another ship reached us, the Haldane platform was still standing, but it looked wrong. The derrick was bent slightly, like something heavy had leaned on it. The drill floor was torn open, and the sea around it was covered in a thin, slick knot oil, something clear and viscous that caught the light like syrup. They debriefed us on shore. We signed forms. We were told not to speak to press. We were told the incident was a well-controlled failure and structural compromise. They offered therapy. They offered hush money disguised as hazard compensation. Most of the men took it and didn't ask questions. I didn't ask questions either, because here's the part I didn't tell them in the debrief. 2 nights after I got home to Aberdeen, I woke up at 02:46 with a taste of salt in my mouth. I lay in bed, listening to my apartment building's plumbing, trying to convince myself I was safe inland. Then I heard it, a faint exhale sound coming from my bathroom drain. In, out, in, out, in, under it, the soft clicking rhythm like teeth. Then my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification from an unknown number. I didn't answer it. I didn't play it. I already knew what it would say, because I could hear it in the pipes, shaping itself into a word it had learned on the rig. Open. I moved to a flat with no bathtub. No drains big enough to listen through. I stopped taking long showers. I stopped standing near sinks when the water ran too long, and I never took another offshore contract. People ask why. They say the money is good. They say I'm wasting my skills. I just tell them the North Sea changed for me. That something down there learned the shape of my life. And once something learns you, it doesn't need to follow you across the ocean. It just needs a pipe, a drain, a narrow place where water carries sound, because whatever we hit with the drill didn't just scream. It answered. And it remembered,